There are moments in life when betrayal cuts deeper than any wound the body can endure. It is the kind of pain that shakes the soul, leaving questions unanswered and trust shattered. You gave your heart, your loyalty, your honesty, only to be met with deception, silence, or abandonment. Betrayal never feels accidental. It feels calculated, personal, and cruel. And in that moment, you may wonder if the pain will ever ease, if the scar will ever fade. But let me tell you something powerful. Betrayal is not the end of your story. It is the turning point. What you thought was meant to destroy you is often the very thing God will use to elevate you. The dagger they placed in your back becomes the tool God uses to carve out your destiny. Do you see it? That betrayal was not a loss, it was an unveiling. It revealed hearts, it separated truth from lies. It tore down false alliances, and it positioned you for something far greater. You see, betrayal feels like subtraction, but in the divine equation, it is multiplication. They removed themselves, or they tried to strip you of your dignity, but in reality, they were making room for God's abundance to enter your life. God is turning their betrayal into your best season yet. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is a spiritual reality. For what the enemy designed for evil, God reshapes for your good. Think of the seed buried in the soil. At first it looks like death. The seed is hidden, covered, and pressed down. But that burial is not the end. It is the beginning of life bursting forth. In the same way, betrayal may feel like you are buried under lies, rejection, and abandonment. But what if you are not buried, but planted? What if the very soil of betrayal is where God intends for your greatest harvest to spring forth? Let us not forget, even the most painful treachery has been the doorway to destiny throughout history. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit and sold into slavery. Yet it was that betrayal that positioned him in Egypt to one day save a nation. The betrayal that was meant to erase him became the stage for his divine assignment. And the same principle applies to your life. What they did to harm you will become the very ladder God uses to raise you. Pause for a moment and reflect. Could it be that the betrayal you endured was God's way of protecting you from a path too small, too limiting for who you truly are? Could it be that the one who betrayed you was never meant to walk with you into your destiny, and God allowed them to reveal their heart so you would not be trapped in chains disguised as friendship or love? Your tears, your prayers, your heartbreak, they were not wasted. God saw them all, and He is already preparing to restore you in ways that will silence every voice of doubt and shame. Those who thought they had written the end of your story will stand amazed when they see the new chapter God is writing. And this chapter is not about loss, it is about resurrection, renewal, and reward. So lift your head, do not dwell in the ruins of betrayal. Let it fuel your faith instead of your bitterness. For you are stepping into a season where betrayal becomes breakthrough, rejection becomes redirection, and pain becomes power. God is not finished with you. He is just beginning. And the best season of your life is being written not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. Betrayal often feels like the final blow, the moment that ends everything you hoped for, the death of trust, the collapse of relationships, and the shattering of dreams. It can feel like you've been thrown out into the cold with nothing left to cling to. The people you counted on, the ones you trusted most, suddenly become the source of your deepest pain. In those hours of heartbreak, it is easy to believe that your story has ended there. But the truth, though hidden under the weight of sorrow, is that betrayal is not the end, it is the beginning of something greater. It is not your downfall, but the very pivot God uses to shift you into your destiny. Life's greatest turning points often come disguised in the clothing of disappointment. When you face betrayal, you stand at a crossroads. On one side is despair, bitterness, and defeat. On the other side is divine redirection, transformation, and elevation. The betrayal that was designed to cut you down becomes the very instrument God uses to reposition you. It closes one door so that the right one can finally swing open. You may not see it in the moment, but what feels like destruction is often construction. God is building something out of the very pieces others tried to break. Think of how a sculptor works with stone. To the stone, the chisel feels cruel. It is sharp, relentless, and it seems only to destroy. Yet the sculptor sees what no one else can see. Every strike of the chisel is purposeful, every cut has meaning, and though the stone feels like it is being shattered, it is actually being shaped into something glorious. Betrayal works much the same way. It feels like you are being chipped away, but in reality, you are being shaped into something greater than before. God takes the pain of betrayal and carves out strength, wisdom, and resilience that could never have been born in comfort. When someone betrays you, it is a revelation, not a ruin. It reveals the true heart of others and saves you from living under illusions. The mask comes off, the pretenses fall away, and what is left is the truth. Truth that might sting, but truth that will set you free. Without betrayal, you might continue to invest in people who were never meant to carry the weight of your destiny. Without betrayal, you might never leave the places too small for your calling. And so betrayal, as cruel as it feels, often becomes the divine push that moves you toward a life you never imagined. Look at the story of Joseph in the Scriptures. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and abandoned in a foreign land. To anyone watching, it looked like his life had ended in tragedy. But God was not writing a story of ruin. He was writing a story of redemption. Joseph's betrayal was not the end. It was the turning point. It was the betrayal that placed him in the exact position where God could raise him to power, where he could save nations and even forgive the very brothers who had betrayed him. If Joseph had never been betrayed, he would never have reached the palace. His betrayal was the bridge to his destiny. And so it is with you. That person who walked away, that friend who turned against you, that family member who spoke against you. It was not the conclusion of your story. It was the divine turning of a page. God is not surprised by betrayal. He weaves it into the tapestry of your destiny. The betrayal you endured is not the last word. God has already written redemption into your future. What you lost will be replaced with something greater. What you suffered will be repaid with joy. What you thought ended your story is actually the moment your true story begins. Do not let betrayal convince you that you are finished. You are not finished. You are being redirected. You are not defeated. You are being prepared. And you are not abandoned, you are being positioned. Betrayal is not the grave, it is the gate. It is the divine turning point, where God takes what others meant for harm and transforms it into the very path to your destiny. When betrayal first strikes, it feels as if the ground beneath you has collapsed. The sting of rejection, the ache of abandonment, the disbelief that someone you trusted could so easily turn against you. It can leave you gasping for air, wondering if you will ever rise again. But what if I told you that God takes the very betrayal that was meant to bury you and uses it to lift you higher than you ever imagined? What if the wound they inflicted is the very step that carries you to the heights of your destiny? This is the paradox of divine justice. What was designed to push you down becomes the platform on which you are elevated. Betrayal, though bitter, is often the stage God sets for your greatest unveiling. The dagger they pressed into your back does not end your life. It becomes the tool God uses to carve the path forward. Their betrayal was not a detour from your destiny. It was the catalyst that propelled you closer to it. Elevation does not come from comfort. It is rarely born in seasons of ease. True elevation is forged in the fires of pain, where you learn strength you never knew you had, faith that cannot be shaken, and vision that pierces through the fog of despair. Betrayal, as painful as it is, ignites this transformation. It is the furnace where your weakness burns away and your true character is refined. And when you emerge, you are not the same. You are stronger, wiser, and ready to walk into the places God has been preparing for you. Consider the way a bow functions. The more the string is pulled back, the greater the force with which the arrow is released. The tension feels unbearable, but without it, the arrow could never fly. Betrayal pulls you back. It stretches you in ways you never asked for. It tests the limits of your patience, your endurance, and your faith. But it is that very tension that launches you further than you could have gone on your own. Without betrayal, you may never have discovered the capacity within you to soar. Think of David, a young shepherd boy who rose to become king. His journey was not paved with applause, but with betrayal. King Saul, whom David had served with loyalty, turned against him in jealousy, hunting him down like a criminal. To anyone watching, it seemed like David's destiny had been crushed by betrayal, yet in reality, God was using that very betrayal to position David. Saul's jealousy forced David into the wilderness, where he learned courage, leadership, and reliance on God. And when the time was right, the throne Saul tried to deny him became David's by divine appointment. The betrayal became the bridge to his elevation. You must understand this: betrayal is never wasted in the hands of God. Every tear you cried, every sleepless night, every moment of pain becomes part of the foundation upon which God builds your elevation. What they meant to tear down becomes the very reason you rise. The tables turn not by your power, but by God's justice. And when they do, the same voices that mocked you will be silenced, and the same people who counted you out will have no choice but to witness your rising. Perhaps you feel right now like you are in the pit Joseph once knew, or the wilderness David once walked. But hear this: the pit is not permanent, and the wilderness is not forever. These are simply stages along the journey to the palace. Betrayal may have pushed you down, but it cannot hold you there, because when God decides it is your time to rise, no betrayal, no rejection, and no enemy can keep you bound. And when you rise, it will be clear to everyone that your elevation did not come by accident. It came through betrayal. It came through pain. And it came through the hand of God, who turned what was meant for harm into the very path that lifted you. That is why betrayal, though devastating in the moment, becomes holy in its aftermath. It is the strange gift that ushers you into your best season yet. When betrayal comes, it often feels like you've been buried. Covered under the weight of lies, rejection, and pain, you may feel as though the world has pressed its cold soil upon your soul. In that darkness, it is easy to believe that life as you knew it has ended. It feels like suffocation, like silence, like the end of growth. But here is the truth: you are not buried, you are planted. What looks like death is actually the beginning of life, and what feels like an ending is the secret preparation for a new season of flourishing. The seed cannot see the purpose of the soil. To the seed, the covering feels like confinement, the darkness feels like death, and the pressure feels like punishment. Yet to the farmer, the planting is intentional. The soil is not the grave of the seed, but the womb of its potential. Within that darkness, The seed begins to transform. Roots dig deep, strength is built in silence, and what is hidden prepares to break through into the light, and so it is with you. Betrayal did not bury you, it planted you. What others thought would silence you forever has actually positioned you for growth beyond imagination. This is the divine paradox. The deeper the soil, the greater the harvest. The more the seed is pressed down, the more potential it carries upward. And betrayal, though it presses you, is simply the soil God uses to conceal and prepare you until the moment of your unveiling. Others may walk away thinking they have ended your story, but in reality, God has only just begun the process of your blooming. Consider how nature teaches us this truth. The mighty oak tree, towering and unshaken by storms, began as a small acorn hidden beneath the earth. It did not become strong in the open air, it became strong underground. In the same way, betrayal forces you into hidden seasons. You may feel unseen, unheard, and forgotten. But it is in that hidden place that God grows roots in you, roots of faith, roots of resilience, roots of wisdom. These roots are unseen by the world, but they are the very foundation of the greatness that is about to emerge. Remember also the story of Christ himself. Before resurrection, there was burial. Before the triumph of the empty tomb, there was the silence of the grave. His disciples thought it was the end. His enemies thought they had buried him, but heaven knew he had only been planted for the greatest victory of all time. The stone rolled over his tomb was not a final chapter. It was the cover of the soil from which eternal hope would rise. And in the same way, the betrayal that feels like it has sealed your fate is not a stone of defeat, but a seal of preparation. God has planted you, and when the appointed time comes, nothing will stop your resurrection. You see, betrayal is not just an act of cruelty, it is often an act of separation. The soil separates the seed from the surface. It removes it from familiar surroundings and places it in darkness. But without separation, there can be no growth. Without betrayal, you might remain on the surface, comfortable but small, alive but limited. Betrayal separates you from what was holding you back and thrusts you into the hidden place where God prepares you for expansion. I'm not sure of experience. Do not despise the soil. Do not curse the darkness, for in that very place God is doing his deepest work. What you cannot see is that you are developing strength to withstand storms, endurance to carry blessings, and depth to hold the greatness he is about to bring forth in your life. When the moment of breakthrough comes, those who thought they buried you will be astonished at what emerges. They will see that you did not die, you blossomed. So, if you feel hidden, take heart. If you feel pressed down, do not despair. If you feel covered in silence, remember, you are not buried, you are planted, and the season of your blooming is closer than you think. If you trace the arc of human history, you will find an astonishing pattern. Some of the greatest destinies ever fulfilled were born out of betrayal. Again and again, the very act that was meant to crush a person became the very act that carried them to greatness. This is not coincidence. It is the handwriting of God across time. Betrayal, though devastating, has always been a doorway through which destiny enters. Take Joseph as the first example. His story is one of the most famous accounts of betrayal in all of Scripture. His own brothers, driven by jealousy, sold him into slavery. They stripped him of his robe, mocked his dreams, and left him for dead. To Joseph, it must have felt like his life was over. Everything he had known was taken in a moment. Yet, we see in hindsight that this betrayal was not a dead end. It was a divine redirection. Without his brother's cruelty, Joseph would never have entered Egypt. Without Egypt, he would never have stood before Pharaoh. Without Pharaoh, he would never have risen to power, to save nations from famine. What began as betrayal ended as destiny. The very act designed to erase him became the event that elevated him. Consider also David. Before he became king, he was betrayed by the very man he honored and served, King Saul. David had done nothing but fight Saul's battles, play music to ease his tormented mind, and show loyalty at every turn. Yet Saul, consumed by jealousy, betrayed David, seeking his life. David was forced into hiding, running from caves, hunted like prey. It looked as though the betrayal had ended his promise, but in truth it was shaping him. In the wilderness, David learned leadership, courage, and dependence on God. Those lonely years, born of betrayal, prepared him to rule with wisdom and strength. When his time came, he stepped into the throne not just as a king, but as a king refined by betrayal. Even outside Scripture, history sings the same song. Many of the world's most transformative figures endured betrayal before their rise. Great inventors, leaders, reformers, often the ones who carried vision ahead of their time, found themselves betrayed by those closest to them. Their ideas were mocked. Their loyalty was abused. Their names dragged through the mud, yet those very betrayals became the fire that refined their resolve, the pressure that pushed them beyond mediocrity, and the storm that made them unshakable. And then, at the center of it all stands Christ, betrayed with a kiss, sold for pieces of silver, denied by friends, abandoned in his greatest hour. To the world it seemed like betrayal had ended his story. Yet this betrayal was the hinge upon which eternity swung. Without Judas's treachery, there would be no cross. Without the cross, no resurrection. Without the resurrection, no redemption. The greatest betrayal in history became the greatest victory humanity has ever known. So you see, betrayal has never had the power to cancel destiny. On the contrary, it has always been the strange companion that escorts it into reality. God, in his infinite wisdom, allows betrayal to push us out of comfortable places into divine places. He permits rejection to reveal redirection. He uses pain to shape purpose. Every betrayal you have suffered is not a wasted wound. It is part of the blueprint of destiny that he is unfolding in your life. Think of your own story. Can you see moments when betrayal, though agonizing, saved you from something smaller than what you were meant for? Can you see how a door slammed in your face led you to one that opened wider? Can you see how someone's rejection spared you from a path that would have drained your spirit? You may not have seen it then, but history, both in the grand narrative of humanity and in the intimate narrative of your own life, reveals that betrayal has always been a bridge to destiny. This is why you must not despise your betrayal. Do not see it only as pain. See it as preparation. You stand in a long line of those whose betrayal became their breakthrough, whose rejection became their revelation, whose pain became their power. History itself is the testimony. Betrayal does not end the story. Betrayal writes the beginning of destiny. There is a hidden mercy within betrayal, though at first it feels like nothing but cruelty. When you are betrayed, the curtain is pulled back, and you see people for who they truly are. It may break your heart, but it saves your soul. Because betrayal is never just an act of pain, it is also an act of revelation. It exposes what was hidden, unmasks what was false, and protects you from building your future upon foundations that were never strong enough to hold you. We often cling to illusions. We trust people because we want to believe the best in them. We hold on to relationships, friendships, and even family ties, hoping they will be what we need them to be. But sometimes, those we trust carry poison in their hearts. They smile in our presence but scheme in our absence. They clap for us in public, but compete with us in private. Left unchecked, these hidden truths could have destroyed us at the most crucial point in our journey. And so, God in His wisdom allows betrayal to tear the mask away. It hurts, but it saves. It breaks, but it protects. Imagine if Joseph's brothers had pretended to love him while secretly despising him. Imagine if their hatred remained hidden until the moment Joseph was elevated to power. They would have sabotaged him when the stakes were highest. But betrayal forced their true hearts into the open early. It was devastating, yes, but it saved Joseph from building his destiny with men who wished him harm. In the same way, the betrayal you endured was a mercy in disguise. God allowed the truth to be revealed before it could destroy you later. Think of betrayal as light in disguise. It shines into dark corners where deceit has been hiding. It illuminates the shadows where false loyalty lurks. It uncovers the wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. You may weep when you see the truth, but would you rather be blind to it? Would you rather keep walking hand in hand with someone who plots against you in secret? Or would you rather God rip away the veil, even if it means enduring the sting of betrayal, so that you can walk forward free? Protection does not always come in the form of walls and shields. Sometimes protection comes in the form of exposure. God protects you by allowing people to reveal who they really are, and once revealed, you are set free. Free from investing more of your love in a heart that does not honor it. Free from pouring your strength into relationships that drain you. Free from walking a road that was never meant to carry both you and the betrayer. Betrayal, then, is not just rejection. It is redirection toward protection. The healer is protection. Consider how betrayal often shifts the course of your life. You thought you would build your future with that friend, but their betrayal freed you to find those who truly value your presence. You thought that relationship would last forever, but its collapse released you from a love that was more prison than freedom. You thought those co-workers or partners were allies, but their betrayal uncovered envy that could have poisoned your success. In the moment, it feels like destruction. Later, you begin to see it was protection. Even Christ's betrayal was a form of exposure. Judas had walked with him, eaten with him, listened to his teachings, and yet carried greed and deception in his heart. Imagine if Judas's heart had never been revealed. Imagine if his presence had lingered, hidden behind false loyalty. But betrayal brought truth to light. Judas's kiss, though treacherous, exposed his heart for what it was, and in exposing it, Christ's mission was safeguarded. The betrayal hurt, but the exposure protected the purpose. The same applies to you. That painful moment of betrayal did not just wound you, it warned you. It shielded you from greater harm. It redirected your steps away from false foundations and set you on a course aligned with truth. What you lost was not loyal love, but a counterfeit version of it. What you endured was not the collapse of real trust, but the crumbling of a fragile illusion. And though it hurt to see the truth, you can now walk forward in freedom, protected by the revelation of what was hidden. So, do not despise betrayal's exposure. It is God's way of saying, this one is not for you. Their heart is not aligned with your destiny. I will not let you carry them into the future I have prepared for you. It is painful mercy, but it is mercy nonetheless. And in that exposure, you are safer than you know. There are nights when betrayal leaves you staring at the ceiling, wondering how something so cruel could happen to a heart that only gave love. The tears slip silently down your face, falling into the pillow as though they disappear into nothing. The pain sits heavy in your chest, and you wonder if anyone truly sees the weight you carry. In those moments, it is easy to believe your sorrow is pointless. that your heartbreak is meaningless. But hear this: not a single tear you've shed has been wasted. Not a single moment of heartbreak has gone unnoticed by heaven. God is not indifferent to your pain. He is not blind to your suffering. He bottles every tear, as the psalmist says, and records them in his book. That means every cry in the dark, every silent ache you've carried in your heart has been seen and remembered. Your tears are not lost in the night. They are treasures in the sight of God. They carry weight, they carry meaning, and in His hands they carry redemption. Pain has a way of making us feel invisible. We look at those who betrayed us and wonder if they even think about what they've done. We see them move on, smile, and succeed, and it seems as though our heartbreak has no value, as though justice will never come. But the story is not finished. God does not waste pain. He transforms it. He takes what was meant to break you and forges from it a strength that no comfort could have produced. Your tears water the soil of your destiny, and though you may not see it now, they will produce a harvest of joy. Think of the weeping prophet Jeremiah, who poured out his soul before God as his heart broke for the sins of his people. His tears seemed endless, his anguish overwhelming, yet even his sorrow was not wasted. It became the voice of warning, the cry of intercession, the evidence of a heart aligned with God's own compassion. Your tears, too, are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of your depth, your sincerity, and your purity of heart, and God honors that. Consider also the words of the psalmist: those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. That is not poetry, it is a promise. Every tear that has fallen from your eyes has been sown like a seed in the soil of heaven. You may not yet see the harvest, but it is growing. The day will come when the very pain that bent you low will lift you high, and the very tears that stung your cheeks will flow into rivers of laughter and joy. Heartbreak, too, is never wasted. It is the strange gift that softens the heart and makes it fertile ground for wisdom and compassion. People who have never been broken often lack depth. Their words are shallow, their comfort empty. But those who have endured betrayal, who have wept in silence and carried heartbreak, emerge with an understanding that no book can teach. Your heartbreak, as devastating as it has been, is shaping you into someone who can carry the weight of greater blessings and touch the lives of others with healing. Look at the life of Job. His tears seemed endless, his heartbreak beyond repair. He lost family, friends, wealth, and health. His cries went unanswered for what must have felt like an eternity. But when God restored him, He did not merely replace what Job had lost, He doubled it. Every tear, every cry, every groan of sorrow was accounted for in heaven. Nothing was wasted, and in the end, Job's life became a testimony of God's faithfulness to those who suffer. Your story is no different. You may not understand why the betrayal happened. You may not see yet how the heartbreak will be redeemed. But trust this: God wastes nothing. Every tear you've shed is a prayer, and every heartbreak you've carried is a seed. When the season shifts, those seeds will bloom, and the tears you thought were lost will return to you as joy unspeakable. So, do not despise your tears. Do not dismiss your heartbreak. They are not signs of defeat. They are signs of destiny in the making. In the economy of heaven, nothing is ever wasted, and in time you will see how even your tears were part of the masterpiece God was painting all along. Rejection has a sting that cuts deep into the soul. When those you trusted turn away, when doors you prayed for slam shut, when the people you counted on decide you are no longer worthy of their loyalty, it feels like the world itself is rejecting you. Betrayal carries with it that heavy sting of rejection, whispering lies that you are not enough, that you are unworthy, that you are disposable. But what if rejection is not proof of your lack, but evidence of God's protection? What if rejection is not the end, but a holy redirection toward the very path you were meant to walk? Rejection feels final, but in reality it is often divine steering. God in His wisdom uses rejection to pull us away from places too small for our destiny, away from people who cannot carry the weight of our calling, away from environments that would suffocate the very purpose planted within us. It is a painful removal, but it is also a merciful rescue. The people who walked away, the opportunities that disappeared, the doors that closed, they were never strong enough to hold the blessing God intends to place in your life. And so, rejection becomes the hand that redirects you, gently but firmly, into the spaces where your destiny can flourish. Think of Joseph once again. His brothers rejected him with cruelty. They despised his dreams, mocked his visions, and ultimately cast him away. Yet that rejection was the very force that moved him toward Egypt, where his true destiny would unfold. Had his brothers accepted him, had they treated him kindly, Joseph might have lived and died in obscurity, his dreams silenced by comfort. But rejection redirected him into the path where his gift could shine and his purpose be fulfilled. What looked like rejection was, in truth, divine placement. Or consider Ruth. She faced rejection and loss when her husband died, and she was left with nothing. Yet in that very rejection she chose a new direction, clinging to Naomi, following her into an unknown land, and stepping into a destiny that would place her in the lineage of kings. If she had remained where she was, her story would have ended in obscurity, but rejection redirected her steps toward a future of legacy and glory. Rejection often feels like a slammed door, but sometimes God closes what we thought we wanted to keep us from stepping into disaster. Imagine the pain of a relationship ending, the sorrow of a friend walking away, or the devastation of being cast aside. In the moment it feels unbearable, but later, when your eyes are opened, you begin to see that if that person had stayed, if that door had opened, you would have been trapped in something that would have drained your spirit and stolen your joy. What you thought was loss was actually protection. What you called rejection was actually redirection. The truth is, we are often too quick to settle. We accept love that is half-hearted, friendships that are one-sided, opportunities that are beneath our calling, simply because we fear the pain of rejection. But God loves us too much to let us remain in places that are too small for His purpose in us. And so He allows rejection to lift us out of what we thought we wanted and set our feet on what we truly need. Even Christ Himself was rejected. By His own people, by religious leaders, by those who had once followed Him. That rejection, though brutal, was the very thing that fulfilled prophecy and set Him on the path to the cross, and beyond the cross, resurrection. Without rejection, there would have been no crucifixion. Without crucifixion, no redemption. Without redemption, no hope for the world. The greatest rejection became the greatest redirection in history. So when you face rejection born of betrayal, do not see it as the end. See it as God's hand moving you. See it as His love refusing to let you remain in places that would destroy your destiny. Rejection is not proof of your inadequacy. It is evidence of God's intentionality. He is guiding you, protecting you, and leading you into a season where what you carry will finally find room to flourish. The door that closed behind you was not the last door. It was simply the wrong one. And the path rejection forces you onto is not a barren road, but a hidden way that leads to life. What feels like rejection is actually redirection. And in God's hands, it always leads you closer to the promise. Betrayal is never easy. It wounds, it scars, it leaves questions echoing in the heart. But what we must never forget is this: betrayal is not the end of the story. It is the very soil out of which God grows our destiny. The pain you endured was not wasted. The tears you cried were not ignored. The rejection you faced was not a curse. Every moment has been seen, every wound has been recorded, and every heartbreak has been carried into the hands of the One who makes all things new. You were not buried, you were planted. You were not rejected, you were redirected. You were not destroyed, you were being prepared. From Joseph in the pit to David in the wilderness to Christ at the cross, betrayal has always been the strange doorway into glory. And so it is with you. Lift your head, take courage. What they meant for harm, God is already shaping for good. The betrayal that tried to break you is becoming the very bridge that carries you into your best season yet. And when that season unfolds, those who once doubted you will see what only God could have done, turning pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, and betrayal into blessing. Break yon, let betrayal. Your story is not ending here, it is only beginning. Trust the author of your life, for he alone can turn betrayal into your breakthrough and sorrow into your song.